Hey, it's Chris. Everdell Silverfrost. Is it right for you? How does it compare to the other Everdells? I have a copy right now in front of me. I'm going to run you through some gameplay so you can see what it actually does and looks like, what the differences are on a round-by-round basis, and then a few final thoughts at the end. Giving you some rules as we go, not explaining at the beginning. Let's do this. As you can see here in front of me, this is the cardboard mountain. I am not going to use this because you're not going to be able to see what's going on. But essentially what I've got going on here are 4 different pedestal spots that you're going to be placing your sort of big creature cards, and they kind of sit there like that. And then you also have beacons. Depending on your player count, you assemble them and you can stack them literally on the side of the mountain here. They slide on, slide off. And that is a worker placement spot to activate these big creatures and use them. And you get to take one from one of the 4 slots. And as you can see here, the ones in the slots to the right give you points. That's the point icon. If you take the one from here, 1 point, 2 point, 3 points. And that's now going over it. And now that's it. Let's go into the gameplay. So Everdell, in a sense, is just a 4-round game based on the seasons. This is straightforward, same actions if you're familiar with the original Everdell. If you're not familiar with the original Everdell, then let me just tell you what you're doing. You are playing a card, you are gathering your resources, or you're placing a worker. If you can't do any of those, then you prepare for the next season, and that's indicated to remind you exactly what's laid out here in the upper left-hand corner of the board. And then you're just going synchronously around the table to say, okay, what can you do? Which means that potentially later in the game, you will have people that are on drastically different rounds than each other. The mechanisms that you're going to be seeing new here are the beacons, like I talked about with the mountain, which I have represented by the sideboard over here, as well as the fire and snow. And those are going to be different resources that we're going to be utilizing as we go along. So I've got my resources set up. You've got your marketplace, you've got your worker placement spots, and then I've got my highland quests. I have lowland quests. 1 have been dealt to each player. Actually, 2 were dealt to each player. You get to choose one and discard the other. Starting player, squirrels in this case, get 5 cards in their hand. Second place, or second player of the penguins here gets 6 cards. You start off with 2 workers, one of which has snowshoes. Snowshoes can go to other areas that other workers are at. So that's going to become very important. Otherwise, we just kind of go. And so what you're going to be doing here is you're going to be placing your workers, gathering your resources, getting a look at your tableau that you can build. You can have 15 spots in your tableau in this game. The resources are on the left-hand side of this card. The victory points that it gives you are on the right. And then you also have the chimney, which allows you to play, instead of the usual resources, a fire and one of your 2 chimneys in this case, a critter that is the same color of one of the buildings that you have built. And so it's an easy way to get a high cost or a very good critter out there sooner. And you get that at some of the other ends of the rounds, and we'll talk about that in other ways. But essentially then what I'm doing is I'm taking one of my 2 workers here. I'm saying, okay, what do I need? But I can also look at the tableau here, and I actually like the idea of this tugboat, but that's going to get me 2 moss. So let's just go to that 2 moss. I'll gather 2 moss, and I'm not going to play optimally. I'm going to play fast so you can kind of see. I do start off with 1 fire for each person as well. And then we'll go to the penguins here. Penguins, again, they have a little bit of everything else here as well. Chip digger, mountain pool, activate 1 green card in your city, or discard a card to clear a snow from your city. And we'll talk about snow as well. They have a village storehouse, which again, pay a bunch of resources to gain 2 different resources, or, well, victory points or cards. So a little bit of everything there. Smelter, but they like the cellar, which is going to get them acorns. So they need some wood to do that. So they will go here and gather 3 wood. And now they have the 3 wood in the fire. And then the trading post here, we could try and do that. And this is a little bit different than some of the other stuff you've seen. You know what? Okay, we need a wood, a copper, and a moss for that. Or we could still do the tugboat there. You know what? Let's lay the little snowshoe guy down, and let's do the wood too. Let's get 3 wood there as well. And then we're going to see if we can build cards in our tableau versus actually do anything else. And then let's go here. I need 2 wood and a moss. And you know what? Let's just go back and forth. Let's not do anything unique in this round. Let's get 2 moss over here. So both players have the same resources, if I can actually grab the moss. And then player 1 here is going to look and say, okay, well, I don't have the copper that I need, but if I play 3 trading post resources here, I'd have a card in my tableau and I get 3 other resources. which may actually behoove me. I could pay those 3 resources and maybe also play my scout as well. Or, well, let's see, what else? Do we have any other critters out here? 2 wood to gain a moss. You know what? Let's build this. Let's pay 3 resources. Let's pay 2 wood and 1 sheep. No, and a moss. We'll get that, and then we'll take a look. What else can we maybe build? So I'm gonna have 2 resources left over, 1 moss and 1 wood. So if I get another moss, another wood, and then, you know what, let's get a copper and let's do all of that, because that gives me plenty of options. And why the tableau matters at this point is because at the end of the round, I'm going to get fire per cards in my tableau. So it's not always about in the beginning rounds, like what cards exactly are going to be the perfect fit, because you're going to be balancing that out with, if I get more cards in my tableau, I get more fire. If I get more fire, I mitigate the snow that's going to come on my cards and cards elsewhere, which is going to stop me from being able to use them. So that's why this is important. Similarly, okay, well, I mean, I don't have a copper to do the village storehouse here, and I don't have 1 copper to do the smelter. You know, I don't have a good combination. I don't have the acorns. I don't have that. So is there anything that I can do on the board here? You know what? I could steal the mossery out from under the player 1 here. And you know what? I think we're going to do that. We're going to say, screw you, player 1, and we're going to grab the mossery, and that allows them to do the mossery there. So then they go back to the first player, and again, they have enough to do the smelter, but if they do the smelter, actually, you know what? They won't have enough to do the tugboat, and that's going to be the big problem there. But you know what? That's okay. That's okay. Let's see. Well, you know what? We would really like the 2 wood or the 1 copper. You know what? Wood is going to be easier to get than copper, so we'll play the smelter here. It's a second card in our tableau. We'll pay the 3 resources that are necessary there. We'll slide them back over here if I can do that. And then that is their turn, and they're left with a wood, a moss, and a fire. So then we run back over here. We have 2 moss and a wood now, and I don't think, oh, the seller needs 2 wood and a moss, and I have 2 moss and a wood, so that is not going to work. And so then they are done, so they can't do anything else. They've got both their workers out. They have 1 in their tableau. So now the upper corner here, what it says is 1 fire per card in your tableau. So second player here is going to gather 1 fire. Then you get 1 of your workers. So now I will have 3 workers. I grab my other 2 workers back and put them in front of me. And then I get my chimney, which I'll grab in a second off camera. And then what I get to do is I get to activate any of the growth or income cards on my tableau, which means I get another moss, which, you know, probably wasn't the greatest thing to have in the first place, extra moss, but it's, yeah, well, you know, I'm not playing optimally. I'm not a good gamer. I just love games. Now, here's the fun part. At the top of this board, you have the 2 different tiles here, and the tiles here and here give you different points of the game that you're going to having to manage. And this tile just basically says if you're in the right season, fire is only 1 per removing snow, but if you get later in the game after Winter's Fury, it's actually going to cost you 2 fire to remove 1 snow, and so that's going to keep track of that. And then this just means for the snow that you're gathering, because it actually matters like who removes snow, you keep it and bring it into your pile. If you have the most snow, you get 5 victory points. Otherwise, you also get 1 point for every snow. If you flip it over to the other side, you get 12 points for the most snow and 0 for everything else. So we're going to play the easy mode, but you're not going to play a full game here. So then is this deck of cards. And so what you do here is you flip over for 2 players, as I'm playing here, you flip over 2 cards per player. And so this means that there is a snow spot that's going to get allocated to this worker placement spot with the mosses, where this squirrel currently is down here at the bottom of the board. It doesn't affect the squirrel that's down there, but in order to play it next time, someone's going to have to spend a fire to be able to place a worker at that spot. So maybe having the mossery for player 2 is actually a good thing. And then we have to do a second card here, and the second card is the second spot of the big critter board, if you will. And so then we flip that there, and I grab one of these other ones, and again, I'm taking one of these and I'm setting it over here on the, what is that, the Corleander. And again, these are all like super powerful cards, right? The Corleander, for example, play 1 card from your hand for 3 fewer resources. When you do that, I have the Eldin over here, 2 fire and 2 of any resource. The Ember Bright, which allows you to discard 1 resource and get 4 fire, and then achieve, what is this, 1 quest, and then draw another quest for Windlord. Because very similarly, if you're going to have one of these big quests over here, the Highland quests or the Lowland quests or the Low Highland quests, whatever they're called, right? You have to actually go to the guild over here to fulfill it, draw 2 more, discard 1, but you can only have have 2 of your workers there per player. And so there's multiple spots. The other different spot is over here, the journey, which gives victory points in the last round to place your workers there if you don't have a better thing to do with them. Forge, you can discard and gain resources for them like always. But then again, some of the extra spots here require fire. The other thing that we have to do for Penguin before Penguin's turn is done and before we go back to Squirrel is the bottommost action here is you need to put 3 snow on your cards in your tableau, and you go from the highest cards, the highest, and then if there's a tie, then it goes down to the color. And I'm not going to go into that, but basically, long story short, is I have to put snow on my Mossery. So if I want to get this later, or if it would have been some of my other stuff that maybe, again, allows my engine to build, I'm going to have to get the snow off of there to even be able to activate it or have it be a passive income later on. And then now we go back to Squirrel. Squirrel only has these 3 cards that are still not great. They don't have enough resources. They don't have any workers to be able to move around anymore. So they're going to pull their workers back. Then they're going to get their 3rd worker. They're going to get the 2 fire based on the 2 cards that are in their tableau. You're going to draw the 2 cards here that are present that are going to give additional snow spots. So on the guild, we've got one here, and then the 3rd critter spot. So we'll put one on the 3rd critter spot as well, if I can find an extra snow here. So we'll grab an extra snow and put one on the 3rd critter spot. And then it goes back to Penguin. Penguin now is looking at their cards and they're saying, okay, well, I have a ton of cards from a Penguin standpoint. But now, what do I want to do? Well, now I'm going to go here. I would really like this cloak maker. And so I've drawn my card actually out of turn. And then I've gotten my 2 acorns as well. So their turn is done by placing that. Now, the tricky part is because I see that this resource with Ember Bright over here and this quest for grab the beacon is 7 fire. If I spend a fire going over the beacon, that will actually drop me down. I believe if I did this right, I have 3 fire over here right now for player 1. And so they'd spend 1 to gain 4. So they'd get 6. They'd almost have enough for this 8 points for that quest. And so you're kind of going, okay, well, is that worth it? You know, if I spend a fire, you know, additionally here, I can get this guy. And when you actually do this, the whole tableau slides over. And that's sort of to entice the victory points to grab the right ones. But if the ones on the left are really that much better, you're kind of, again, which one do I really want to do? Either way, I have just 1 copper and 1 stick because I gained the copper from my tableau over here when I got the income phase for Squirrel when they were activating and grabbing all their other resources, the fire and then the snow. So then I have to figure out what I'm going to do here. I could go to the hot springs and just get 2 fire and 2 cards. And truth be told, I think I'm going to do that because I need a fire and you know what? I could use 2 cards since I only have 3 cards because again, I can go and discard cards for resources too if I really need to. I have an inn now which has one of the special worker placement spots, just like the cloak maker, where I can place it there, or if someone else wants to place it there, they're potentially going to give me a victory point. Play a card with the valley from the valley for 3 or fewer resources. Oh, that's actually really freaking good. It does take one of my workers though, 2 wood and 1 moss. So I already have almost that. I have 1 wood. So then we go back over here, move these cards back up here to get them out of the way. And so now the cloak maker though is available. And so what we're going to do is we're going to play those 2 acorns we just acquired. We're going to grab the cloak maker because it gives us this extra worker placement spot here that allows me to activate 2 incomes in the valley or in my city. And so that's actually pretty good considering we have a couple of these out here that allow me to activate another one in the valley and then draw cards and get victory points for every resource I have or get more wood. So if I activated these 2 right here, I could, well, get 4 wood potentially on 1 worker placement spot as opposed to the 3. So, I mean, that's not bad. I've got 2 cards in my tableau now. So I'm trying to go, okay, you know, is this really what I want? And why the wood might be really important is because I actually have for my lowland quest here, a gather 5 wood and get 6 victory points. So that'd be why I would be looking at it from that aspect of things. So now we go back to the squirrels. The squirrels are going, okay, well, maybe I want the wood, or what do I have actually in my cards here? And I do like the inn, but that's going to be 1 moss, which I don't have, and 2 wood. So that's going to be a little bit tricky. The acorns here, activate any opponent's deployed worker for yourself. Ooh, that opponent gains a fire. So a lot of the rangers, any cards that have ranger in them tend to interact with other spots already in that way. Trailblazer, discard 2 cards from the valley and gain. We talked about that. Draw 2 cards, you may discard up to 2, and then victory points. So I'm not really happy with a ton of these, but let's see. I will think we'll do... You know what? We're going to say we want the moss. Moss is going to be a little harder to get, but it's going to require fire. Maybe we don't want to do that, but if the fire doesn't get taken off, you know what? We'll do it because we'll spend a fire that we just got last turn because that snow will actually go into our victory point pile potentially for the perpetual powder card that we talked about up there. So then I get my 2 moss from over here. So now we're gonna have a little bit more variability there in terms of what we can do. And then it goes back to penguin. Penguin still has 2 workers. You know, and they're gonna go for that wood. We just need the wood right now, and so we're gonna go for 3 wood, and then we'll grab the 3 wood here. It gives them, and then back over here, and we will see kind of what we can do now. We could play the in card. Nope, we're still 1 wood short. But we could, you know what? We may have to play our ranger here to go and get the 3 wood additionally, because almost all of our cards, unless we're going to do acorns, might be requiring that. But I do have the trading post card here. So that is, if I got a critter of the same one, I do have the chimney token that I didn't pick up and show you, but I do have access to it, and I do have the mist ranger here. So you know what? I think we're going to do that. I think we're going to we play our chimney token. So what I'll do is I'll grab my chimney token. I put my chimney token on my trading post card here, which is just off the edge of camera, which is on my tableau. And so then I get to play the mist ranger if I also spend a fire. So if I do that as well, then I get to do that. And I have a mist ranger here that says activate any opponent's deployed worker for yourself. That worker, that opponent gains a fire. So now I have 3 cards in my tableau. That opponent gains a fire, and I'm going to activate that 3 wood spot that I don't even have to, you know, spend a worker now on for myself. So then that's my turn. It goes back to the penguins. Now the penguin does have the cloak maker, and so the cloak maker might be what we want to do. Although again, I'm not really super enthralled by these spots on here, but let's do it. Let's put our last worker out there. Although we could go elsewhere, because we have the worker with the little snowshoes here. But you know what? Let's put it on our cloak maker card right in front of me off of camera. And it says activate 2 different incomes in the valley or your city. So I could gain a moss. I don't really need a moss. We will activate 2 different ones. So I'll activate this one, which allows me to activate this one. And then I will activate this one. So then that's going to give me 4 wood. So I have a ton of wood. Again, it really does sound like Catan now that we say it out loud, right? So 4 extra wood. So now we're up to 8 wood. So if I had a worker left, I could go cash in Fuel the Flame, because I would be able to get 6 victory points with this quest card right now, and then draw some more to potentially do that, because that's a big significant portion of your victory points. But because I can't do that, I'm going to have to now wait and see if there's any other cards I might be wanting to play more, either from here or from the tableau. And maybe I actually want to do the trading post, because if I only need 5 wood, well, I could trade in 3 of these wood and get maybe 3 copper, or 1 copper, 1 acorn, and 1 fire. So I mean, because they have to be different. So going back over to Squirrel, Squirrel has 1 of their workers left, and then we have a bunch of fire, a bunch of wood, and a little bit of everything else. So we could play the inn. You know what? Let's just do the inn. 2 wood and 1 moss. Again, because it's getting a 4th card into our tableau. So we'll set that right off camera here, and then we have that set up there. And that actually gets us 2 victory points. So just from the tableau already for the 4 cards, I have 7 victory points to put that in comparison. 4 cards, 7 points. This one mission for having 5 wood is worth 6 points. So you can kind of see the dichotomy there. Now I have a ton of resources. So you know what? Let's buy this one, this trading post, because again, it puts a card in my tableau. We'll spend the 3 wood that it would cost, and we will get a copper, an acorn, and we'll get a fire. And then we get to replace a card in the tableau here, which is gain an acorn with the seller. So there we go. And then it goes back over here. Again, 2 wood, 1 copper, 1 moss. And I have 2 critters, and then the Great Hall, which is costing a ton. But I also have my worker here. So I can't really, well, you know what? I can go here to get the acorns, but that would still only give me 2 of the 3 acorns required for the scout. The Stormwatch does cost 2. You know what? We could do that. Or we complete our quest. So the quest here is 4 moss. And so I can't do that one. You know what? I really like this squirrel, but I'm actually going to place it on the inn card that I showed you previously, which allows me to play a card from the valley for 3 or fewer resources if I place it there. So I'm going to place my last worker there, and then I'm going to actually use it for, I think, the post office here, which allows me to discard up to 4 cards from my hand to play a card for that many resources less. And so I like the idea of that. But you know what? I actually kind of like the idea of the Fire Ranger too. Or you know what? I like the idea of the beacon. You know what? Let's screw it. Let's do the beacon, because that's only going to cost me 1 wood and 1 copper. Because what I'm going to save this Fire Ranger for is the second round's chimney, if you will, to be able to do that later on. So I think I might save that. So I activate the beacon here. It's my 5th card in my tableau for the squirrels, and I get to activate one of these critters. Now, I don't know off the top of my head if it needs to be one that is not affected by the snow, or if it is affected by the snow, if it's something that I actually have to mitigate. But I'm going to reduce it down to 1 and 1, so 1 wood and 1 copper, and then I get to activate it. It's going to have 2 victory points as well there. And I'm going to interpret this as I would actually have to clear the snow if I wanted to do one of those. So the ones that don't are achieve a quest and then draw. So, you know, I don't have 4 moss. I don't have enough fire. This is having 5 income cards greater than, as well as greater than some other effects, so more wood than the person on your left, which I definitely don't have. So that would be another great one for player 2. And then the last one is in the growth, no snow in the city, and have more cards than the person on your left. So a lot of these quest cards over here will actually be comparing some sort of your feature to the player on your left. And I think it's always your left if I was reading through the rules. So it's just something to be aware of. Now, if I wanted to go for that beacon one, you know what? I don't believe, since this card isn't activated, I actually have to pay for the flame cost. I could be wrong on that. But I think I would have to pay for the flame cost for the snow on this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, you know what? I really not sure I'm going to need this moss. So we'll discard this moss. We'll activate the Ember Bright. It gets me 3 victory points as well as 4 fire. So that does get me up to 7 fire then. So then we would have 7 fire there. And all of these cards would slide down. And then we would refill another critter card into that spot. And then that would go for the squirrel's turn. Now, penguins are looking at it and going, okay, I may be able to buy 1 more card. I have enough fire. I have wood. But, you know, I really like the idea of, you know, going for this card, this quest card, but it's going to cost me a worker. So let's see if we can do anything else here. And we refill this because I forgot a minute ago. But you know what? Let's save it for the quest. Let's not spend it right now. And you know what? This new card that just got picked up, the chimney sweep, it's actually freaking good. So what we will do is we'll actually use the chimney for the penguins here, because it's a little travel token bag thing there. I always forget the names of those, but we have a chimney, so I'm going to put it on my trading post right here, which is the same, and then I'm going to pay one of my fires to then be able to play this card for free. And it says remove a chimney from a card in your city. You may use it again on a later turn. So this got me an extra card in my tableau. So now penguins have 4 cards in their tableau, and they still have the chimney that they're going to do. Now, for the sake of gameplay, before we end this up, I'm going to say that squirrels can't do anything else. So squirrels are going to grab all their workers. Now, then we go back up to the top here. I get 1 fire per 2 cards in my city now. So I only have 5 cards, so I'm only going to get 2 fire from that aspect, which does still bring me up to what, like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's plenty for the beacon. And then the other thing that happens is we flip over. This is Winter's Fury, and now 2 fire are required to clear a snow. And then what we have to do is we have to clear the whole critter board over here. So we would refill this all with the critters that are available to us. Then we have to draw 3 cards in order to put more cards and snow down there. I would get a second chimney token as well, and then you would draw the top 3 cards here, and well, we'll replace this for the sake of doing it. And so then these would be placing a snow onto the 3 wood spot, worker placement wise, and then the upper guild portion of things right there. And then we have the valley card, and so you'll see them go out here on the mountain pool now. So there you go. That is what Everdell Silverfrost has to offer. Let's talk about my thoughts and my impressions, having it in front of me, being able to play it, and hopefully not being able to script too many of the rules for you along the way. So as you can see, it's not terribly different in some senses of what regular Everdell is, right? It stays tried and true with what is out there with this, what is out there with Farshore, what is out there with Duel, in terms of getting your cards from the market, building your own tableau, as well as just the action resource swapping mitigation. But a lot of these cards, I mean, this is a big deck, folks. This is a huge deck. And so I like it because there's just so much stuff in here that is just different. and it's a little bit more complex. It is a step up from your Everdell. It feels like an Everdell that already has an expansion included. I like the big critters. The big critters are probably the best part about this game because, as you saw, they are super powerful. And there is just an absolute wide variety of them as a whole. And so not only to be able to activate these for the cost of one of your workers and some fire, it is really, really probably easily the best part of this game above all else. And they're all unique, as you can see here, and they just work. Let's talk about the other thing that goes right along with that, right? This cardboard mountain. I mean, it's fine. The problem I have with these things in general is that it's not super labor intensive, but it's also, I can't put this back in the box, and anything that makes my setup teardown even longer without adding significant value just isn't really something I'm always a big fan of, because I have this flatboard that is completely functionally exactly the same, takes up less space on the actual table itself, and everybody can see very clearly, because the other side of the mountain is you have to almost have it sitting at one end or sitting everyone on the same side of the table. So especially if you're playing at the higher player counts, it doesn't work just even a feasible aspect of things. So that's a little bit of a downside. I wouldn't mind also, again, this is also my personal criticism of Everdell, is that, the income phase of these things. I wish I was getting more of the active income of the green cards just on every single, end of season. I know thematically why it doesn't make sense, but at the same time, it feels overly constrained to me as someone who prefers these games to be a little bit looser in general. Looser, meaning just you get a little bit more. I want to do the cool stuff. I want to get the cool combos. I want to be able to do as many of those cool combos as I can. But you can see, even after playing like through 2 rounds, I've already got 5 cards in my Tableau. So you're going to get close to maximizing your Tableau out there, but I like the fact that it's just straight 15 cards too. There's no, like, it's got to be in this certain arrangement or this sort of set. It's just there. And so that's very nice. The snow definitely makes it more complex because you're having to manage the fire. And the fire being more than just a burning off the snow is also nice, because if it was just burning off the snow, I feel like it would be one of those things that was just tacked on and not fully incorporated. Having it be a resource you can gather from some of the spots, having it be utilized in some of the spots in the first place, having it be utilized over here for the critters. It works. And I like the addition of the chimney. One of my biggest favorite features of Everdell Duel, when I talked about it just previously, was the chimney cards, essentially allowing me to get critters down without having to pay the resources as sort of a get out of jail free card. Hey, maybe I didn't optimize the way I should have, or maybe I was being really clever in seeing this fire ranger that was sitting out there after I played my in last round, knowing that I wanted that card, but I'm gonna spend my resources here. That's going to benefit me more here now, and this is going to be an easy catch later. The tricky part with that, again, it doesn't get away from the Everdell situation, is that, if it's out there, you can just kind of, just get it. Like, other people may have some take that. Again, I like the variety in Everdell Duel better in the sense that this doesn't have the river tiles, if you will. The river tiles in Everdell Duel, if you're not familiar, they basically allow you to put up 2 completely unique asymmetric worker placement spots on a round by round basis. And so I actually would have loved that. Not in place, but almost additionally, because I wouldn't mind 1 or 2 more worker placement spots in this. And I like the Everdell Duel version of things where it's not requiring me to play a worker. I believe, if I'm remembering this correctly off the top of my head, to get those resources for discarding those cards. And so I like that, and I wouldn't mind if just that incorporated over. But it's going to be a more strategic game because it's going to make you choose to play one of your workers to get those resources as well. So that's going to be the yin and the yang of that. The other side of things with these quests, of the ones over here on the side that are the compare to your person on the left, right? Left, correct? Then you are going to potentially just, like in this case with 2 players, the first player, Squirrel, had absolutely no chance at having more wood than their player on their left, because that was a strategy they went down. So are you going to base this off, what you're going to do with the rest of the stuff? No, probably not. But you can already see, like, a 5-card Tableau is 7 victory points. And this one that, Penguin could get in a round or 2 is worth more than all of the cards in their Tableau right now from Squirrel's side of things. So these are super, super big. And also, that's where the majority of our points have come from. the victory point scoring cards as well. I mean, you get a lot for them. The mountain pool here is 4 for victory points and 2 for each other like traveling symbol bag. I can't ever remember those in your city as well. But you know, it's gonna be really optimizing your strategy in one specific way. And I tend to be an omni gamer. I tend to be an omni, you know, point scorer, which is probably why I suck at these games as a whole. But that gives you a lot of variety down to how you want to, based on what is out there in addition. The other aspect I didn't really talk about, but because of the snow mechanic and the associated potential blocking-ish of spots, is that, especially at the higher player counts, you will have people that will clear it out for you. And you'll be like, oh, thank you. And that's also sort of like Champions Midgard, where if you didn't have the expansions and your guys get killed, you just don't get rewarded for them. And so you're going to be like, well, I'm just going to let someone else clear out the spot because it clearly doesn't benefit me. However, they actually, again, I wish there was more than just 1 or 2 of these in how you're scoring the snow, but the fact that you can score snow and use those resources, again, to be a meaningful way and not just have them go wasted and be unlucky because you have to be the one to clear it out. Like you're the one shoveling driveway in Michigan in the winter when it's -2 out. Not that it happens anywhere that I'm located, right? It works. Again, I wish, you know, there was 1 or 2 of these more, not just 5 points the most and 1 point each, or just some variety there. I'm not a game designer though, so I can't really give you anything more specific there. But that is a nice feature as well. At the same time, again, I would say that I'm glad that there is just an essential edition, because I think this aesthetically, with the meeples and the cards and just the resources that are what they are, and again, they're not final in all of these, so don't look at these and be like, oh, well, that's what they're not. This is, you know, a pre-production copy. And so that is really something that works as well. And the question, though, is this going to be the Everdell for you? And if you're comparing this to original Everdell, yeah, I mean, there is more complexity. I like the fact that the board is a little bit more compact in front of me in general, and it has everything on there that I need to. I mean, the design-wise, it's definitely improved from that aspect. It doesn't make me feel like I need an expansion, but like with those things I said, I wouldn't mind a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So I could see it being a little bit different, but I don't see myself also, like with original vanilla Everdell, going, I kind of do want some more. It is more like Everdell Duo, where I feel like the complete package is here. So if you said, Chris, Everdell versus Everdell Silverfrost, I mean, there's absolutely no comparison. I mean, this is much better, in my opinion, for almost everybody. If this is a non, you know, used to worker placement type people you're playing with, this is probably also going to be a little too much. Definitely different enough from Farshore with the sailing, the treasure chests, and the maps. And so it definitely gives you a different dynamic than that game as a whole. It is more similar to the original, with the fire and snow sort of layered on top like that, than it is a little bit more of a sidestep like Farshore is. So if you're looking for something that is just strategically and thought-provokingly a little bit more different, Farshore is probably your better option. But if you're looking for an Everdell experience that is more akin to the original without having to buy an expansion, this is that. I'd still make the argument that I might prefer Duo if I'm still playing with 2 people, but arguably I think this one also is easily better than the original regardless, and it's kind of, you know, 60-40, just because I really do like Everdell Duo. If I was only going to play this with 2 players, you know, I still might give the edge to that, but easily, obviously, you're going to play it with 3, and I'd probably lean this way ever so slightly, probably 55-45 over this compared to Farshore, just because this is more of my original vibe that I prefer overall. So there you go. That is what we've got going on. That is Everdell Silverfrost. They sent me the pre-production copy so we could talk about it, and let me know comments, questions, concerns down below. Hopefully I haven't made too many rules mistakes, and if I have, I'll let you know as well. So have a great freaking fantastic day. Peace out. See you around.